Welcome back, friends, to another exciting episode of 13 on the 13th. Yes, it is indeed my favorite segment, as I'm sure it is yours. As we've all heard the saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and horror is no exception. So come along with us as we take a look at some of the genre's most vicious women. Yes, this is 13 Femme Fatales.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh? She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
There couldn't be a more appropriate place to start.
Well, I'm Mrs. Voorhees.
Vengeful, merciless, probably one of the more unassuming figures we'll see on this list. Betsy Palmer was a seasoned theater and TV actress, ironically having something of a distaste for horror before landing the role that she would be best known for. The story goes she was needing help paying for a new car and accepted the role of Mrs. Voorhees under the guise of it being the means for making the payments.
And I said, oh, nobody is ever going to see this. It will come and it will go, and I'll have my shrug.
Oh, how wrong she was. Friday the 13th has indeed withstood the test of time, and we can only thank Betsy's menacing, albeit brief, performance as Jason's mother. While the character itself does make a resurgence from time to time, it's Betsy Palmer's portrayal that will forever be the one to fear.
I am Jason.
As insane as she is, with Jason somewhat living in her mind, there is a degree of sympathy to be had. Having endured the tragic death of her helpless son, it sent her down a road of revenge that probably never would have been stopped had it not been for Alice's killing blow. Still, a mother's love is uncontested, fulfilling her promise to avenge her son until her dying breath. On behalf of horror fans everywhere, we thank you, Betsy Palmer, for one of the best horror villain portrayals of the genre.
Don't let her live. I won't, Jason. I won't.
Speaking of vengeful mothers, how about burning an entire room of her young? Yeah, Ripley was definitely asking for it here. This terrifying Giger imagery comes to life as the Alien Queen. James Cameron's continuation of the Alien story is argued to be one of the best sequels of any franchise. That too. Yeah, you could say the man's got a talent for outdoing the original. Aliens takes the claustrophobic terror that was the former and beefs it up with all the hard-talking, action-packed gunplay, blood splatter one could ask for. Horror elements notwithstanding, Aliens makes the action the lead focus of the film, building up to one of the more brilliant anticipations of a new creature to come. We get a hint about halfway through that there's something to expect, but with no detail really to go on, we're left to wonder until Ripley stumbles into the Queen's hive. That oh shit feeling when the camera cuts to wide and we see him surrounded by the eggs.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
And when we finally get a look at the Queen, it's every bit of nightmare fuel you'll ever need. A living phobia. An interesting choice to have no music for the final battle, as the two do whatever they can to take each other down. It really leaves room for us as the audience to feel the impact. Seemingly impervious to damage, even when the crane suit is dropped on her, the Queen won't be defeated so easily. She goes down, everyone's going down with her. And the final shriek when she's launched into space is enough to chill your blood every time. Now this one's a bit different, as Carrie is not exactly the antagonist of her story. There are another one or two on this list that fall into this category, and for the same reasons, but the fury she brings down on these people is for one purpose.
Destroy everything.
We've all been picked on at one time or another, I'm sure, but the torment Carrie endures throughout this movie is unmatched. And coming during a young girl's most vulnerable times, it's no wonder she snaps. No one is safe. Not even the few decent people that tried to befriend her. Like all great stories, being Stephen King's first breakout novel, King was not too thrilled with it upon completion. If memory serves, he actually went so far as to throw it away, thinking it wouldn't be any good. I believe it was his wife who rescued it and insisted he send it in. The rest, as they say, is history. And I really can't think of a story that's been remade or reimagined more times than Carrie. The 76 original, the 1999 sequel, followed by the 2002 remake, and then the 2013 remake. Now personally, I'm partial to the 2002 rendition, not taking anything away from Sissy Spacek, but the O2 telling was more my generation, and I enjoyed Angela Bettis' portrayal that much more. But that's me. Let me know which one you prefer down below. No matter which is your favorite, Carrie will forever be one of cinema's most ruthless tellings of revenge. As they say, payback is a bitch, and her name is Carrie White. Staying with Stephen King for a minute, yet another manic mistress in Annie Wilkes. This is not a tale of revenge, but rather when fan adoration goes way too far. And let me just say, this movie has one of the most disturbing scenes that I've ever seen. If you're familiar with it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If not, then this is your spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. James Caan plays a writer because, of course he does, Stephen King, who, after a sudden car accident, is taken in by a kind passerby. Unbeknownst to him, Annie Wilkes is a great admirer.
I'll take good care of you. I'm your #1 fan.
More like #1 obsessive, as Annie isn't too thrilled with Paul, James Caan's character, has decided to retire his character book series. Annie guesses that character's name? And while Paul is recuperating, Annie insists he continue the series to keep her favorite character alive. Little does Paul know how insistent she is, as Annie goes so far as to tie him down and break his ankles with a sledgehammer.
No, sir, I didn't like it.
You know, I appreciate my readers for all their enthusiasm, but if anyone out there is so enthralled with one of my stories, a simple request of continuation need be enough. I mean, this is one of those scenes that hurts every time I think of it, and I know I'm not alone here. Kathy Bates' performance as the ever-twisted, insane Annie Wilkes was more than enough to land her an Oscar for the role, which is saying something, really. I mean, an Oscar in the horror genre? The only one I can think of without looking it up is Silence of the Lambs. Bravo, Kathy Bates. Bravo. Now, here's one that, while I could not finish watching either the original or the remake for obvious reasons, still deserves a mention on this list here. While the original came long before Saw, the remake definitely took advantage of the torture porn craze of the time. Good Gotti, the savagery that Jennifer Hills endures is bad enough, but the revenge she takes on these guys is oh so justified and satisfying for all your tastes in creative gore. It's brutal to the point of hair clutching as you watch what she inflicts on her attackers. Once again, I could not sit through this movie, even after several attempts. I tried, I just can't do it. I'm perfectly comfortable with the secondhand tellings and the highlight reels that I see online. That's enough for me. There is no mercy had, and even less deserved, as Jennifer really takes the time to savor the flavor of her revenge. I really don't think anyone watching would think they learned their lesson. No, her actions are entirely justified. There aren't many movies I can't stomach, but this is one of them. To that end, I have to give the filmmakers credit, as I'm sure that's the point they wanted to get across. As I said at the start of the video, hell sure hath no fury like a woman scorned, and I can't think of anyone more burned than Jennifer Hills. You like werewolves and vampires? Well, I can't think of a better joining of the timeless fable. They really did a great job in presenting the world as if it truly belonged to the dark. The lighting, the atmosphere, I keep forgetting this takes place in modern day-ish. Not exactly sure where it takes place, but there's apparently been a long history of these creatures throughout the centuries. A war that has continued to current times where many of the players now were merely born into the conflict, with no real personal grievance. Not speaking, of course, of our focus here, Celine, a death dealer for the vampire race. One of their top soldiers and most ruthless killers, not without her own moral compass, though. Celine is driven by a nearly blind devotion to her father figure in Victor, who, unbeknownst to her at the time, was responsible for the death of her family and her current state. She spends most of the runtime of each film cutting a bloody path through anyone that gets in her way. As the films progress, she loses trust in nearly everyone, less loyal to her own kind, and more committed to her own path, evolving along the way like a video game character, constantly getting upgrades in weaponry and strength. Now, while I feel the Underworld series may have overstayed its welcome a bit, as most franchises tend to do, I still do enjoy the occasional run-through now and again. I mean, Kate Beckinsale, leather outfits, are there any objections?
No objections. No objections.
I truly do feel it is a one-of-a-kind telling. Bathsheba from The Conjuring. Alright, first things last. Has anyone out there actually stayed at this house? I would really love to hear about your experience in the comments below. While the true accounting of events is up for debate, the film itself is a well-crafted pace of tension and fear. One thing for sure that adds a bit more to the creep factor is to find out that Bathsheba was actually based on a real person. Bathsheba Sherman was a woman of suspected satanic worship in the 1800s. There were rumors that she had killed a young boy in her care for apparent dark reasons and then hung herself. There is some claim too that she may be descended from someone named Marytown Easty, a convicted witch of the infamous Salem witch trials. So some judgment may have been placed on Bathsheba from the jump. However, between the dark history and the pollution of the film into pop culture, I'm not going to go so far down the rabbit hole just yet, but only comment on the film itself. The malevolent spirit is said to haunt her land and anyone who dares to call this place home. As extraordinary claims have been made over the years and dramatized for the purposes of entertainment, this film certainly delivers on the scares and horror. We don't really get a sense of who or what's behind all the activity in the house until the culmination of a twisted scene of possession where she is finally banished by Ed Warren. It's a chilling and heartbreaking sequence. Bathsheba just goes to show you that, even in death, there is no salvation from vengeance. Before we continue, I'd just like to take a break here and say that I've noticed that there are a lot more views than subscriptions, so if you guys get a second, if you haven't hit that button yet, please click that subscribe button. It helps support the channel and goes a long way. Also, I have just put together a small merch shop. I'll include the link in the description below. If you got a minute, please go ahead and check that out. Any proceeds are going to go to helping this channel move forward. The better we do, the more we can bring to you. So please subscribe, like, share these videos, and check out the merch store. I really do appreciate your time, folks. Now let's get back to the series. Mama Cecile from The Skeleton Key. While Mama Cecile might not have the impressive body count like most on this list, she is certainly one of the more terrifying and callous women we are representing here. The Skeleton Key is a creative story with one of the more surprising twists I can remember. Once again, if you are not familiar, this is your spoiler warning. Spoiler warning! We are taken through an interesting and unsettling journey with Caroline, a caregiver who wants to make more of a difference in her patients' lives. And when she answers the call for a live-in aide, she quickly finds herself in the middle of a sinister plot where the lady of the house warns her of the spirits that inhabit the home. What Caroline doesn't know is those spirits are alive and well, one of which is in dire need to claim a new body. And really, if you weren't cautious around magic, spells, incantations, and things of that sort, you certainly will be after you've seen this. Mama Cecile is the wife of Papa Justify, a servant couple of a prominent white family of the 1800s, but they don't plan on staying that way for long. We learn that in their mutual practice of hoodoo, not to be confused with voodoo, they've learned to transfer their souls, body jumping to potentially live forever, so long as they can instill enough belief in their victims. Really, ask yourself, what's worse? To be killed like so many other victims are? Or to have your soul switched out into a haggard, broken, old body with only a few years left to live, and being well aware of it? The true terror, I feel, is the awareness, and the cost of immortality for Mama Cecile. Tell me, what do you believe? Here is a genuine classic. Nothing complicated really, just some old-fashioned serial killing, with actually some commonality with Mama Cecile in the art of cheating death. Only here it's voodoo, horribly misrepresented, but still a fun ride. Now, as the franchise has continued on into nonsensicalness, if you ask me, and for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to stick with The Bride of Chucky alone and the facts we learn therein. You ask me, Tiffany is way more sadistic here than anywhere else in the films. Tiffany was Chucky's lost love and the one who was responsible for his resurrection and, as a result, her subsequent death. When she brings him back in a rather comedic fashion, she is disappointed to find out Chucky never had any real plans to marry her.
What are you, fucking nuts?
They are the perfect match made in hell. And honestly, I'd say Tiffany really gives Chucky a run for his money as far as who's more sadistic. She's organizing, criticizing, going so far as to impress Chucky to the point he's taken aback. I very much enjoy coming back to this film now and again, enjoying the path of carnage Tiffany cuts through the film. A nice poetic homage, albeit on the nose a little bit, with Bride of Frankenstein. It was, or would have been, the perfect end of the story. My three favorite witches, Sarah, Mary, and Winifred.
It's the Sanderson sisters, right?
Yes, indeed, a Halloween staple for everyone. And we're not even going to bring up the sequel. That movie doesn't exist. Period. Hocus Pocus is a classic Disney movie in a time when Disney really just wanted to entertain. And for what was supposed to be a simple kids movie, it's a pretty dark situation happening here. 3 witches in old-timey Salem are hanged for stealing a child's life. They're resurrected 300 years later to continue their pursuit of child death in an effort to keep themselves alive forever. Our young cast is guided by an immortal cat, the brother of the girl from the beginning. Side note, I want to know how many people actually named their cat Binks after seeing this movie. Let me know in the comments below. Back on track, as along the way we see the cat get killed, not once, but twice. Yeah, this one really offends the rules of film. Don't hurt the kid, don't hurt the animal. And while the Sanderson sisters are a comedic trio, their intentions are nothing short of sadistic. They're able to hypnotize an entire town indefinitely while hunting and luring children to their demise, casting spells left and right, and even raising the dead. It has all the familiar tropes you'd expect from a Halloween movie about witches, black cats, cauldrons, spellbooks, coven in the woods, children in peril. It's all there in one spectacular film. And while Mary, Sarah, and Winifred may be unassuming in their banter and antics, make no mistake, the Sanderson sisters are a force to be reckoned with. Have a happy Halloween, everybody. Samara from The Ring. Certainly a unique concept to imprint evil onto a videotape. The Ring is an American retelling of the original 1998 Japanese film Ringu, which in turn is an adaptation of the 1991 novel of the same name. A cursed videotape that kills anyone who watches it, which might seem like a dated concept now. The Ring could be considered a commentary on the influence of media on the populace, specifically of the horror genre, which had really come under fire for its graphic and provocative nature. Not only that, but video games and music were under the same kind of scrutiny as you may remember. The Ring definitely makes a direct dramatization of this, with disturbing and psychologically twisted imagery that can only be seen as an invasion of an otherwise innocent world. Again, drawing a direct parallel to what horror and other graphic content might have been viewed as. In this case, many of the images, from The Fly to Samara herself, emerging from the screen to destroy anyone unfortunate enough to set eyes on the disturbing imagery. The tape on its own is something of an artsy, psychological piece where, when taken out of the confines of the film, it can bear an upsetting feeling. I'll go ahead and drop a link below if you want to check it out. Samara can be seen as one of the more vengeful entities on this list, invading and twisting the innocence of the world as that which had befallen her in life. Is she evil? Or is she more victim than villain? I guess that's a matter of opinion. Nevertheless, be wary of the influence any media might have over you, especially these days. It might very well be your end. Mrs. Loomis from Scream 2. There truly is no more terrifying creature than a vengeful mother. This is probably the best continuation of the Scream storyline. We get a more detailed look into the web of lies that is the Prescott Loomis story. What a mess of events that would make even Jerry Springer blush. It's no wonder these people ended up down the murderous road that they did. The seed was perfectly planted in the first film, with Billy explaining his motivations and why his mother was absent. It makes sense that Mrs. Loomis would be stewing over her situation, not to be pushed beyond her breaking point when she found out that her son was killed by the daughter of the woman who destroyed her family. Really, who's to blame for everything that's happened in Woodsboro? It all seems to stem from Maureen Prescott, who really brought out the worst in people, directly or indirectly. Mrs. Loomis, however, I feel was the more understood character here, might go as far as to say justified. Not that what she did was right, but having her family torn apart, then killed, it's not that far a reach to see why she snapped. And her motivations here are nice and clean.
Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge. You killed my son.
That's what makes Mrs. Loomis so terrifying. No one more dangerous than a person with nothing left to lose. And finally, Gozer, from 1984's Ghostbusters.
Well, Gozer was a man, whatever it wants to be.
And in this case, Gozer is indeed a woman, played by Yugoslavian actress Slavica Jovan. I think I did that pretty well. While everyone else on this list was out for revenge, immortality, or war, Gozer has to be the most dominant with its desire to take over the world. An historic godlike entity hell-bent on destruction. I wrote an article I'll link below about such a figure called Enlil. Fascinating, and somewhat unsettling to learn that Gozer is much closer to fact than you'd realize. Throughout the film, we see the turbulent influence Gozer is having over the city. Spoken of as this unseen force, its inevitable arrival and conquest, Gozer is a supernatural beast of unprecedented power. We don't get to really see Gozer in action, unfortunately, as much of its power lies in its history and the stories told therein. Had Gozer been victorious, who knows what the world would look like now, ruled by this immortal deity.